Hi, welcome to the Multi-Unit Mastery Monday, where we give you share information and tips and best practices so that you can be successful in your franchise enterprise. My name is Aisha Bascaro, and today we continue the video series on all of the experiences and the panels and breakout sessions and keynote speaking that I experienced during the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference. In today's session, we are going to talk about the session on due diligence for choosing a new brand, a segment, or service system to expand your portfolio. This was a very interesting session, and there are a couple of things that I noticed as I was reviewing my notes and preparing for the session. The first thing that I noticed is that a lot of the best practices that they shared on how to do that due diligence had to do with when you are in the last stages of selection of where you want to be. And so, first of all, that's one of the things that you want to look at or understand as I'm going and sharing what I experienced in this particular session. And the second thing that I noticed is that as good operators, they couldn't help themselves but get into the best practices of what to do to manage your business successfully. So even though the topic for this session was the due diligence to select a new brand, a new service system, or a new segment, they still went into operations and were giving best practices and ideas to all the people that were attending on things that they should have in their own business. So having said that, let's go ahead and get started with this part 5 in the video series of the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference and the session on due diligence for choosing a new brand, a segment, or a service system. All right. So I'm going to review each of the participants, or the panelists at a time. It was a panel of several participants, all of them at least multi-unit franchisees in not mumbos, which means multi-unit, multi-brand. And that way we can keep it organized as I'm sharing this information. And I know that it is a lot, but I'm telling you, if you can have a note, a piece of paper and pencil, and while I'm conveying what they shared, all of these tips can be helpful to all of you that are out there, even if you are operating your own business right now or your own franchise, and you already have selected it. Use this information to see if where your franchisor is and your business is the right place, because you never know. You may need to make a change if some of these things resonate as not being aligned with what you have right now. All right. So let's get started with the first Mumbo, multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee, and his name is Chris Klebba. And he's a multi-unit franchisee for Smoothie King, Buffalo City Soap, Planet Fitness, and others. So he's a pretty large franchisee. And one of the first things that he said, that when you are in the process of selecting, a new brand or a new segment, is that one of the things that is really critical is that your franchisor is aligned with their franchisees, or when the franchisor that you're looking at or considering, that they are actually truly aligned with the franchisees. And this is something that you really need to explore, not only by speaking with franchisees in the brand, but even to looking at the FDD and any documentation you can find to see if there are any issues in the community between the franchisor and the franchisee. And then find out what the other franchisees are like, because even when you join a franchise system, not only are you now under the franchisor's, control or guidance, but you're going to be in a community with other franchisees with whom you want to be able to have similar values and be aligned with. And so this is going to be a family with whom you're going to be spending many years with. And the better that you are in alignment and in agreement and are like them, the better you're going to have in your experience as a franchisee. Also, you need to make sure that it's a brand that is aligned with your growth plans. And what they mean by that is that if you are determined to be a multi-unit franchisee, that right off the bat, you are able to then negotiate and secure an area that would allow you to accomplish those growth plans that you have for your business and your organization. Because if you do that right from the beginning, the likelihood of you being able to secure that obviously is going to be, successful. Because if you wait down the road and they're not in alignment with you and your goals, eventually it could be a difficult thing for you to be able to grow the way that you want to. Something else to look for is the communication that the brand has with the franchisees at large. And they say, one of the things that as you're visiting franchisees, ask, have a list of questions of the things that you want to ask those franchisees, of the things that you want to learn from their perspective of what is the franchisor like. One of the interesting things that was resonated from presenter to presenter is the fact that when you're looking at a different segment and you're looking at a different brand, they weren't really looking so much for a specific segment or industry specifically. This because a lot of them, the value they placed was more on the franchisor support, the brand itself, and the community that they had created. So what I take from that is that regardless of what industry or platform or segment you're getting into, what is going to be critical for the success of that brand and their franchisees is really going to be that relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee. So really do your proper due diligence or research to make sure that that part of the people side is going to be so important. And it goes back to how we are in business with people, and therefore that relationship is going to be crucial for you, because even if things go wrong, if you have that open communication, you will be able to redirect and improve together if you have that type of relationship with your franchisor and fellow franchisees. One of the things that Chris said was that they look for big territories. They are not interested in just a few handful of units when they look for a new brand. So literally they're looking for large territories in newer brands, not mature brands, newer brands in which they can control the market. That is something that for them and their organization, something that they look for. So those newer and emerging franchise brands are absolutely some of the ones that are looked at, especially for a lot of growing multi-unit franchisees, because they are able to identify those gems that may be newer and not many people know, but once they're able to identify, they can truly capture the control of a market, have that explosive growth in a brand that, while might not be known, that they're going to be able to utilize all of the systems and processes they have created for the other brands into this new brand, which will then provide success at a brand that is newer in the market. So, again, people is important, right? And going into operations, they said that Chris Klebba, that employee engagement is no longer an option. He was saying how you need to be able to attract great people. And one of the ways that you do that is by being transparent. And if you are a franchisee that is growing, you have to sell that growth opportunity. That because that is something that a lot of great people are looking for. And if you have it, if you're one of those growing multi-unit franchisees, you can actually tell that story and attract those people that are hungry for opportunity and a career and the future for themselves. And that is how you as a franchisee can win, by capturing a market, an area, a large growing growth opportunity for yourself and your people. Something else that he mentioned is the importance of reducing turnover. And it's something that I say all the time, and I talk to my clients, that while hiring is always an ongoing activity for the business, we need to spend just as much, if not more, time focusing on reducing turnover. And he said that you should have a team development plan. Every person, especially every leader in your organization or potential leader in your organization, should have a development plan so that you can prepare, not only inspire and excite them about the future if they're a staff member, but if they are already a leader, that you can help them and guide them and develop them into better and better leaders. He said part of his best practices was that they have an offsite meeting once per month, that it is usually 30 minutes to an hour, but that it was critical for them to bring the people together to build that team environment and culture that he wants to have, and also develop the leaders and the future leaders for the organization. he also shared that they have and again, they went back into a lot of operating best practices beyond the due diligence exercise. But he said that you have to have individualized engagement and rewards. So what he meant by that is that whatever programs you implement, make sure that you cannot not just support the things and the activities and the goals and objectives that you want as an organization, but if you are able to individualize the recognition at a personal level, that will bring you a whole new level of loyalty and commitment towards you. So and at the lower levels, unit levels, if the managers in those units can get to know their people and understand what is important to them. For some people, it might be that they want to be a future entrepreneur. For some others, that they have a family and kids. For some others, they might just love gardening. And if the managers, the unit managers leading the people, or even the district managers leading the unit managers, they know them to that level of, a personal level, that then they can actually uh, personalize those rewards and recognitions when they do something great. And that, can you imagine if you had a unit manager that is a gardener, and because they're doing a great job, one day you come and you give them, a set of, new special seeds of plants. The fact that you took the time to even know what they like and enjoy, and that you make the moment or the effort to bring them something that is special for them, it will make a huge difference in the organization. And that's something that he encourages, and he really enjoys doing it within his organization. In terms of growth, he actually shared that they do have an internal construction manager, because she says, I'm not a construction expert, and they have so much growth. Again, every time they negotiate a new brand, they want to control the market, and therefore the amount of growth going on in the organization is tremendous. So therefore, having an internal construction manager made sense, and he wanted to delegate the responsibility of that very important task to somebody that's an expert at it. So that is what Mr. Chris Klebba shared in the due diligence session. The next franchisee, also a Mumbo, his name is Donnell Thompson. He oversees Checkers and Dennis in his area. He's an ex-NFL football player, a very successful player in the Colts team, and that eventually ended up getting into franchising. And he's been in that industry, in our industry, for a very long time. And he really decided that whatever he was going to get into was going to be something that he enjoyed doing. And he really, truly enjoys the Checkers brand. And he believes, look, knowledge is power. Him coming from a football sports career, got to learn and understand the business, and that is what allowed him to be successful. He took the time to truly learn the intricacies of the business and what made a difference and what was important and what to do about it to make it better. And so his recommendation is know your business, and that knowledge is power. He said that one of the things that he will look at, looking at a new brand or a new segment, is that, how is the relationship between the franchisors and the franchisees? And what he meant by that is Checkers currently is an open book. As a franchisee, he knows what's happening in the brand. He knows who the leaders are. He has a great relationship with them. And for him, he values that. He really, truly feels part of the family. And for him, that's very important. And if he was to look for another brand, which he may be looking at, for him, the relationship between the franchisees and the franchisors, the open communication is critical, and it has been part of his positive experience in his franchise life and journey. He said, area protection by unit is important. You want to reserve a district, again, just like Chris said, as if you want to be a franchisee, to be able to be more effective and more profitable, having that close district and being able to reserve it if you are not able to open it, obviously right away, is important so that you can grow in an area that makes financial sense. The more spread your units are, the less profitable you're going to be. That is just a principle of it. And so it is important that you know that. He said, Another tip, for you to be successful, invest in a training program and the technology. Not only do you need to do that as a franchisee, but you need to make sure that your franchisor is doing that. Nowadays, if you're not high tech, if you're not investing in technology, even if you're not there yet, but if there is commitment from leadership on that technology, that at least gives you, the view that the future is going to be a positive one. So if you if so, as part of the due diligence, when you're researching what brand, what segment, or what service system you want, make sure that whatever brand you choose, it is one that is looking at technology as a true and intricate part of their business. Again, he said, people work with people, and you need to know who the leader is. You need to understand who the executive team is and who you're going to be working on day in and day out. The same way that you look at that in the franchisor side, you need to look at that internally. Again, going back to operations, he was mentioning how don't dismiss someone in your team just by the way they look. Because sometimes, the book, what is it, cover of the book is deceiving you. It can't really tell you what is inside. And so, a tip from him is, give everybody a chance, or look at everybody with an honest look, and give them the chance to prove to you that they are the right team for you. People may surprise you. I assume he's gotten a couple of surprises in his career. He said that once you find the right people and the great people, and you train them and you give them the tools they need, get out of the way. Get out of the way, and make sure that they have the tools, and get out of the way so that they can operate your business. And that way, that will give you the ability to focus on your growth. In his case, in terms of growth, he actually has 2 internal construction full-time team members. And the reason for that is because at all times, one of his company's commitment is to have 2 units in the opening process at all times, meaning that they have a unit, 2 units operating. Once one opens, the new project opens up, and they are focused on the new project. And so they have 2 construction processes or projects going at a time, which is the reason why he has 2 internal construction team members to manage those projects at all times. And that is how he ensures that he can have the growth that he wants and is in his plan for the year. All right, so that was with Mr. Donnell Thompson again, a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee. The next one was Mr. Brad Nutt, and he is actually interesting. I was looking at his profile. He is not even a franchisee just yet. He's about to open a Heyday skincare business. However, he has a lot of experience in financial services. I guess he's known in the industry, and because he's already secured that an area with that brand, is why he was part of this panel, because he just went through the process of selecting a new brand for him and his business. And so for that reason, this is the things that he shared that he did to land in this particular brand. He said that, first of all, that the brand needs to be in alignment with your personal and business goals. And again, there seems to be a trend here, right? That whenever you are looking at a brand, if you are a multi-unit franchisee or an aspiring multi-unit franchisee, and you are getting into the business to grow, that from the very beginning, the conversation with that franchisor must be as to how you're able to accomplish, that goal. What are the number of units that you want? What areas and markets do you want to grow on? Can they give you the ability to secure those areas? And that's what he has done with the Heyday skincare franchise. One of the things that he said it was a red flag, or could be a red flag, as you're looking at those brands, is if the franchisor is not readily willing and able to share information. And I guess that would be the opposite of having an open franchisor, right? In his side, so as Donnell said, one of the plus sides that he likes about his franchise of Checkers is the open and honest conversations and communication he has with the franchisors. And on the other side, Brad is saying one of the red flags would be if the franchisor is not willing, wanting, or even able to share information. That would be a red flag. The next thing, and I think this was very, very important, and something that not enough people pay attention, especially people that are looking, that are new in the franchise world, that are just starting and trying to select where they want to be, is you really need to know who owns the brand nowadays. And who are they in debt with? Are they in the private? Are they still family founder owned, or is it a private equity firm that owns them? I would say that 20 years ago, a lot of the brands, even the big brand, the big mature brands, were still owned by the original founders. Those people, those entrepreneurs, hardworking, men and women and families that started the company together and grew it from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then, but eventually, and they were the ones running it. But now, eventually, a lot of them started to sell. So a lot of the brands, mature, and even the emerging ones, have been sold to a lot of different people. And so you need to really find out who they are sold to, who owns them, where they are, who the leadership team is, what other investments they have done, how did these investments do after they took them over, and what happened with with the companies afterwards. This is something that I think is very, very important, that if you are looking to expand your portfolio into other brands or other businesses, or industries, that you really take a look at that leadership, because that is going to make a big difference on the current status and future status of the brand. Brad said that he had a large area in Colorado, and that he is going to grow it himself. And the franchise store is also opening units, and that's something that he was looking for, to be in partner with another brand that is also opening units. Because if the franchisor is opening units, that gives you the message that those units must be financially viable and successful, and therefore that's why they're growing it. And so if, as a franchisor is growing, they are also giving rights for franchises, that is a healthy notice for you to understand that if they bet on their franchise, franchisees also going to be able to bet on that. And you want to look at franchisors that are improving the business constantly, that they believe in innovation beyond technology. If it's food service, obviously menu. If it is real retail, to look at what, the industry, where the resources of the product, and what other differences of SKUs or lines of products that could be added. If it's a service brand, can they have the ability to expand services? Are they looking at that? Do they analyze those things? This is the type of things that they say, are they improving the systems? Are they improving the products? Are they improving the service processes that they provide? And what is the franchisor support infrastructure? And one of the things that he was saying about the importance of who is in that franchise organization, that are going to be the people that are going to support you with marketing, with training, with operation support, right? And so knowing who they are, what their role is, and how you're going to be able to interact with them is going to be very important. Something else that they said is that you need to be able to create a culture where people want to work at. They're going to be spending a lot of time in your organization, and having a culture, a mission, a vision, your values, and truly spending quality time and making sure that they're the right ones, and then spreading that focus and culture within your organization is going to be paying dividends for you. So as you can see, a lot of them were going for, and it's interesting because none of them actually specifically spoke about why did one got into skincare, and why does another one got into food service, and why did this other franchisee got into a fitness, for example. While they did have a variety of brands, none of them got into the due diligence as to how to select the industry in which they were going to get into. Because obviously, there's a big umbrella called franchising, but under the franchise umbrella, there are a lot of industries that you could choose from. Food service is only 30% of what's possible. So these are the 70% of franchises that are the industries, and yet none of them actually mentioned choosing that. And I would say that post pandemic, seeing who the winners are and who the losers are is going to be very important when you choose your brand. All right, but running very, very long, and I'm sorry about this, but this was a very interesting session, as you can see. So I'm going to go to the last presenter in this panel, and that was Mr. Mike Lester. And he is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee also, from Walk On Sports, Bistro, and Crisp and Green franchise. He's also a newer franchisee. And one of the things that he and I had a lot in common is that we both come from an extensive background with working with global brands in the franchise world and otherwise. And he had a very long, successful career, and then he decided to get into the franchising world. And as he got into the franchising world, I got into the educational world, right, with that background. And he said that he had 4 steps that he took to decide what brands he was going to get into. So the first step was evaluate the business model in the FDD, franchise disclosure document, specifically item 19. And the item 19 section 19 of the franchise disclosure franchisor disclosure document is the profit and loss statement that they said that they had in the organization. Obviously, it is not exact. It's an average. Some of them show the average of the best, and some of them show the average in general. Make sure that you know which average or what numbers are you looking at, and then really take a careful look at those numbers. If you are not familiar enough with profit and loss statements and how the numbers work, before you go into choosing a brand, you have to get yourself educated so that you can analyze the business the right way, so that you can make a decision, the best decision for you and your business and the money that you're going to be spending. The second thing is you should look for if the franchisor is lean and mean. And what that means by that is that they're going to give you the right support with great leaders in the organization, but not have them spend a lot of money in that infrastructure. And so who the people are, not just the leader, but the team underneath them, the experience that they have, where do they come from, and how are they going to service you, and how many there are, is going to make a big difference. Because if the franchisor has a large infrastructure, they have to pay for that infrastructure. And so that comes from royalties. And it comes from whatever fees they collect from franchisees. And so if they are able to be, like I said, he actually called it lean and mean, they're able to have great people in a tight organization, but really quality, then that tells you that is a smart franchisor that is going to be financially healthy for the long run. This third thing that he said is it has to have a product that you can be proud of. And so in that case, it could be any, in any industry, right? If the product that they provide, it is something that you can be proud of, then that is the right brand for you. And I can see that because we have clients from, personal care to education, to food service, of course, and retail. And I can always hear in the sound of their voice how proud they are of the product and service that they provide. And that is really something that's critical for you and your future success. Because if you're proud of your product and your service, your employees, your team will be proud of it. And they are going to be giving the proper service and products to your customers, who would then be proud of being able to be your customers. So definitely very important. A red flag for him, he said that how do they treat their employees? He said that was a red flag. And also, as you're talking to your franchisees, so their franchisees, are these franchisees being treated like professional partners that they are in the brand, or are they treated like employees? And he said that was going to be very important because he wasn't going to be a franchisor's employee. He was going to be a franchisor partner in business. And so for him, that relationship was going to be important on that. And then he says, really dig into the franchisee's experience with employer experience in the organization. Can you find out turnover? What is the score that these employees give these brands? There are many resources right now online that will tell you what their employees think of the business. And if you research that, it will give you an insight as to what's happening inside of those headquarters. Very, very important. Something else that he said is that it is a franchisor's duty to share best practices in operations. So how do they do that? Do they have meetings? Do they have regional meetings? Do they have conferences? Do they have learning and development opportunities for their franchisees and their people? This makes a big difference. And are the franchisors investing in the right infrastructure and leadership? Meaning, are the people that are being selected to be the leaders in the organization, are they the right leaders? Do they have the right experience and knowledge? All these things are the things that you need to look at when you are looking for other brands to add to your portfolio. And then he turned into operations and he said, always be intentionally recruiting. And, every day, all the time, recruit your customers. Everybody that is willing to hear, ask them if they're looking for a job, ask them if they know somebody else that is looking for a job, because that will allow you to then find amazing people that you wouldn't if you didn't ask in the first place. And develop your own talent internally. Don't wait for the leaders to come to you and apply for a job. Look at your organization. You have people in there that can be the leaders of your future units. So develop them and focus on that, because that is going to be the way that you're going to ensure that the leaders of the future will be ready when those units open. He also said, he said that he said that he was making a joke about how many hours he was working before he even opened the first unit. He said that his wife was complaining about how much he was working, and he said that he knew from his experience, from his background, an executive in these brands, kind of, like I did, the importance and the critical role that's having systems for all your processes and procedures in your organization, how critical that was. And he truly spent the time before he opened to define everything that he needed to define that the franchisor was not going to provide, so that whenever he opened, his people had not only the brand systems, but his business systems ready to go. And he said he had 4 specific best practices or tips. Number 1 is hire the best people. Obviously, that is something that we all want to do, but do you have the systems in place to be able to find who they are, hire them, and retain them? And then he says, train the crap out of them. Meaning that if you have, make sure that you have the time to train them with the proper abilities and skills that they need to be successful. And not only successful, but for them to be able to also feel confident at their job. This is something that I teach in my masterclass. As a matter of fact, last week we had our latest masterclass. We have a multi-unit franchisee masterclass we teach every quarter. And we had that one last week. And I just realized I prepared for this morning. And I'm like, well, that is something I teach in our masterclass for sure, how you need to do that. And then number 3, he said, empower your people. Once you have found great people and you have trained the crap out of them, then you need to empower them to do the job. Obviously, otherwise, what's the point of doing all that time of an investment, right? Empower them to do the job. And number 4, get out of the way and trust them. Obviously, you got to verify, as what I always say, trust but verify. But if you empower them and you trust them to do a good job, they're going to step up to it. People will step up to your level of expectations. Not everybody, I get it. Not everybody, but most of them will. And if they know that you're trusting them and you're letting them know that, and then you can focus on other things like growth and sales, then they're gonna be there for you. But you have to, first of all, have the right people. Then you need to train the crap out of them, and then you need to delegate the operations in a way that they can actually do it the right way. So I thought that was totally aligned on that one. The next thing he said, you need to have a simple but effective bonus. It has to be a bonus program for your managers that is achievable. Still a stretch goal, but achievable, because if you give them a bonus that it is just so far out there that, it's going to be hard for them to get, they will lose the excitement and they won't even try. So things that to include, of course, sales growth over year, cost controls for sure, customer metrics is, the kind of things that you want to know how the customers are feeling. And of course, franchisor standards, because they are the ones that are going to give you the direction of what and how to make the best out of the brand you invested in. So make sure that you are then recognizing and rewarding the people that are helping you keep those standards up. He said in regards to pay structure, and again, they got a lot into the operations tips. And he said, in regards to pay structure, he said, make sure that your organization is always in the top 20% in the market. Because if you are in the top 20% in the market, then you're probably going to be able to get the best people. The question is how you're going to find out where you are in the market and your pay. You got to research that. Okay. And then another tip that he said, and this is so true, he says, do not hire family or friends unless they are true professionals. Because if you get into the business of giving people jobs as a favor, the one that's going to get hurt is going to be you and your organization and your rest of your team. So do not give a job to family or friends unless they are the utmost professionals. And what he said about growth, he says he has one external contractor. So for him, in his case, he's not internal. Again, he's just, in the startup phase, but he knows them. He's seen them in the market. He's worked with them in the past in other, in his other roles, and knows of them, and he trusts them. And for that reason, he has that external contractor. He also has hired a project consultant. And that project consultant is get paid based on the money that they are able to save him. And so that even though he's investing in that project consultant for growth, he's actually saving money by having done that. Again, he's not an expert, and he's hiring the experts to do the job so that he can have and achieve the growth goals that he wants. So you have to have a team, whether it's internal or external. It has to be a team that you can trust, that do the job well, that they do it on time, and they do it in budget if there is a budget for it. And if you can have it externally and it works out, great. If you have it internally and that works for you, that's also great. He said you have to spend money to make money, and you have to be very careful as you are a multi-unit, potentially multi-brand franchisee growing, that you spend the money in the right places. Stay with the areas that you are your zone of genius per se, and the areas in which you have a deficit, hire the people that can do the job better than you. And that was it. That was the session. I mean, it was a fantastic session. I got clearly a lot of it out of it. And I wanted to close with this, and the reason I talked about Mike at the end is because one of the things that here at the American Franchise Academy, we dedicate ourselves to is to provide franchisees all of those systems that he talked about, those systems that he spent hours upon hours before he even opened his first unit developing, because he knew that if he had those systems for team and how to hire and retain the best people, and the systems for cost control so that he can minimize the waste and make the most profit, or the systems for income, or how he was going to be focusing on increasing sales and capturing the money that came in, and of course the systems for growth so that he can open unit after unit successfully. He spent that time before he opened the unit because he had the knowledge and experience to do so. Now, if you are a franchisee that is listening to this information, and you know in your heart and in your brain that this is true and that you need that, and you don't have the resources or the knowledge or the mentors or the experience to do that, I would like to invite you to research our program, our command program, where we help franchisees do just that. So if you would like to learn more about the program, we also have information sessions every quarter about the program that you can join us at no cost, so that you can just see what the program is, what we offer, how we deliver it, and what is the outcome that you should expect at the end. And if this is of interest to you, all you have to do is go to multiunitsuccess.com and look at the information, register to a free information session, and see if this is something that interests you, so that you can have the systems and processes that Mike and Chris and Donnell and Brad have implemented in the business and have allowed them to be a successful multi-unit franchisee and growing in their business. All right. Thank you for being with me in this session, part 5 of the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference. Next week, we'll come with part 6 of the conference, and we're going to be talking about service, since one of the breakout or keynote speakers was talking about the service and a new way to look at how your employees deliver the service to their customers. All right. Thank you for being with me in this much longer Multi-Unit Mastery Monday, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.